Intraocular pressure is the only modifiable risk factor in glaucoma. Additionally, control of intraocular pressure is the most commonly assessed parameter in the follow-up of this disease. The most accepted method of IOP assessment today is Goldmann applanation tonometry. Therefore, the knowledge about theory and practice of this investigative modality is a must for every general ophthalmologist. This video has been created to give insight into the practice of the most accepted method of assessment of IOP, that is Goldmann applanation tonometry. Intraocular pressure is measured by relating deformation of globe to the force responsible for deformation. Although a large variety of tonometers exist today, tonometry is grossly categorized into two types depending on the shape of deformation of cornea, namely indentation tonometry, where the shape of deformation is a truncated cone, and applanation tonometry, where the shape of deformation is simple flattening. Prototype of indentation tonometers is Schwartz tonometer, and that of applanation tonometers is Goldmann applanation tonometer, or simply GATT. Schwartz tonometer displaces large volume of fluid and hence scleral rigidity effects result significantly. Here, displacement of fluid is variable and unpredictable. This gives inconsistent results and requires conversion tables based on empirical data. In applanation tonometry, the shape of deformation is simple flattening and is constant. Therefore, relationship of intraocular pressure can be derived from simple mathematical calculations. Depending on the variable studied, applanation tonometers are further divided into variable force and variable area types. Goldmann tonometer is the prototype of variable force applanation tonometers. Thus, it measures force required to applanate a standard area of cornea. Variable area tonometers with Maklakoff tonometer as the prototype are no more in popular use. Initial non-contact or air puff tonometers determine IOP from the time required to applanate cornea in response to air puff. However, the present generation determines the IOP from the actual jet pressure required to applanate cornea. Perkins tonometer, which uses same biprism as Goldmann tonometer, is useful in bedridden patients and in operating room. TonoPen is a handy instrument based on Mackay-Marg principle of strain gauge and is useful for measurement of intraocular pressure in irregular corneas and in bedridden patients. Because of its versatility, it has become more popular than Perkins tonometer. Pneumotonometer is based on similar principle and can give readings of ocular blood flow in addition to IOP. However, it is more of research tool and is used very little in actual clinical practice. Now, some recent introductions to tonometry. Pascal dynamic contour tonometer is based on the principle of contour matching. Here, eye is enclosed by a contoured, tight-fitting shell and assumes that the force generated by IOP would act on shell wall. A part of shell wall is replaced by pressure sensor to measure this force, which is translated into digitally displayed IOP. Ocular response analyzer is based on air puff technology and has double applanation. This helps in the measurement of biomechanical properties of cornea in addition to IOP. In rebound tonometer, a magnetized probe impacts cornea. It decelerates and rebounds from the surface. Deceleration is assessed by a sensing coil, being less at low and more at high IOPs. Despite all these novel modifications of the principle of applanation, introduced in 1954, GATT still remains the gold standard instrument to measure IOP for the management of glaucoma. Goldmann tonometer is based on Imbert-Fick's law, which states force required to deform a perfectly flexible, dry and thin sphere is equal to the product of area deformed and pressure inside the sphere. Since eye is neither a perfect sphere nor dry and flexible, some other forces come into play and thus the law needs modification. These factors include volume displacement, ocular rigidity, surface tension and the force required to bend cornea. Whereas first two factors are negligible in applanation tonometry, The last two balance out each other when the internal area of corneal applanation is 7.35 millimeters square. This quantum of internal applanation is achieved when external diameter of applanated cornea is 3.06 millimeter. Thus, at this stage, the law becomes applicable. The instrument consists of 5 parts, which are Meyering prism, feeler arm, control weight insert, housing, and revolving knob with Meyering drum. Different models are available for different types of slit lamps. The probe consists of a doubling biprism which is used to applanate cornea, and it optically splits the circular area of corneal contact into 2 horizontal semicircles by inducing horizontal shift. On touch, tear film appears as a bright yellow-green spot which turns into semicircular arcs when the tonometer is moved forwards. When 3.06 mm diameter of cornea is applanated, the semicircles interlock. The thickness of these semicircles represents tear meniscus on the sides of prism. Certain precautions need to be considered before undertaking the procedure. First and foremost, all kinds of contact tonometry should be avoided in infected eyes, corneal injuries, and in eyes with open globe injuries. Next, remember to clean tonometer between 2 cases and disinfect the prism after a day's use. Remove the chemical completely after disinfection or cleaning. One should verify the prism for scratches and sharp edges when the day starts and replace the prism every 2 to 3 years. The equipment preparation includes setting the magnification at 10x, switching power to maximum illumination, maximum thickness and maximum height, bringing the blue filter in place, and creating an angle of 60 degrees between illumination and microscope. Prism and tonometer should get fixed into notch. After this, turn the Meyering drum to setting 1, which is equivalent to 10 mm of mercury. Now, the patient preparation. After informing the patient about procedure, anesthetize both eyes with proparacaine. Place moistened fluorescein strip in lower conjunctival sac and place head of the patient on chin rest. Fluorescence of the stained tears facilitates visualization of tear meniscus at the margin of contact between cornea and the biprism. At this point of time, I take an opportunity to share a few practical tips. Do not touch eyelashes with prism as they are not anesthetized and thus will induce blinking. It is more accurate to measure increasing than decreasing IOP. So, while starting measurement, keep drum position lower than expected value of IOP. Generally kept at 1, one may start with higher drum readings if IOP is expected to be very high. Now, I would brief the procedure for actual measurement. After obtaining contact, observe cornea through microscope. Regular pulsations of 2 exact semicircular rings or equal size show that tonometer is in correct position. These pulsations represent cardiac cycles. Drum is rotated to adjust pressure on globe until the internal edges of both semicircles meet at midpoint of these pulsations. Reading is multiplied by 10. Inaccurate vertical alignment can give rise to false IOP values. This part of video shows inaccurate vertical alignment which is being corrected. Inaccurate horizontal alignment means that IOP which is being recorded is different from actual intraocular pressure in the eye. Small semicircles away from each other suggest IOP is higher than shown by the drum position, and large overlapping semicircles suggest drum reading is higher than actual intraocular pressure. When accurate IOP reading on drum is reached, the rings are exact semicircles of equal size, vertically well aligned and horizontally interlocked at internal edges. It is essential to emphasize that thickness of Meyers should be around 1/10 of the total diameter of flattened area. Thick Meyers as shown here lead to overestimation. Here, the prism tip as well as the eye should be wiped and pressure rechecked. Thin Meyers lead to underestimation of IOP and may need additional fluorescein. Prolonged contact of prism with cornea can lead to corneal injury and reduction of IOP and hence should be avoided. Although Goldmann tonometer is gold standard due to its accuracy and reproducibility, it does have certain sources of error which may be patient, observer or instrument related. The most important considerations are astigmatism and corneal thickness. When the Myers are in usual orientation, the IOP is underestimated for with the rule astigmatism and overestimated by 1 mm mercury for each 4 diopters of against the rule astigmatism. In highly astigmatic corneas, one should align minus astigmatic axis with red indicator, which is placed at 43 degrees from horizontal indicator. Alternately, one may record IOP with prism oriented horizontally as well as vertically and take a mean of these two readings. Mathematical calculations for Goldmann tonometry are based on presumed corneal thickness of 520 microns. Low corneal thickness, as in post-keratorefractive surgery, can underestimate the intraocular pressure and higher thickness will overestimate. However, if corneal thickness has been increased due to corneal edema, falsely low readings may be recorded. In addition to these errors, procedure has limited value in irregular corneas and that the assessment of pressure over contact lens is not feasible. Disinfection of prism is best done by home bleach, sodium hypochlorite, 3% hydrogen peroxide, mild soap or proprietary disinfectants recommended by the manufacturers. For cleaning in between cases, using hydrogen peroxide, dilute bleach or simply distilled water are the most practical. One should make sure that prism tip is dried before use to avoid getting excessively broad Myers. Now, the calibration check. Although the manufacturers recommend once a month calibration check of the instrument, general consensus is that 3 to 6 monthly check depending on the age of the instrument is sufficient. Calibration check is performed at scale readings of 0, 2 and 6. For position 2 and 6, marking of different side is required for different models. As shown here, if opposite marking is aligned, the calibration check cannot be performed. Precise setting of mark is key to successful calibration check. If any defect is detected in the calibration, the instrument may need to be sent to manufacturer for repair. However, the technique of in-house calibration may be learned by going through another video by the same author. In the end, I conclude that all ophthalmologist friends of mine should not only learn this procedure but make it a standard examination protocol in their own clinics. Thank you.